Good morning, students. I welcome you all to the electrochemistry first session of mine, which is part of a 6th semester curriculum of Mysore University, finally Mysore University. So in today's session, we'll be discussing about what is electrochemistry, then what are electrolytes and non-electrolytes, what's electrolytic and metallic conduction, and what are electrolytic cells and galvanic cells and their differences. So since it is electrochemistry and you have studied this electrochemistry at plus 2 level in detail, and just extension of that you will be studying here in 6th semester. So electrochemistry deals with the study of interconversion of electrical energy and chemical energy. Electrochemistry can also be defined as the study of interaction of electric energy with the chemical species. I repeat, electrochemistry can be defined as the study of interaction of electrical energy with the chemical species, or in other words, we can also define it as the study of interconversion of electrical and chemical energies. In the sense, we can convert electrical energy into chemical energy or vice versa. So that is the definition of electrochemistry. And whenever we are dealing with the interaction of electrical energy with the chemical species, what should be the nature of chemical species? What type of substances will have interaction with the electricity or electrical energy? So if there is to be interaction between the current passed and the substances should be electrolytes. Unless this substance under consideration is an electrolyte, there would be no interaction between electricity and the matter or the substance you have taken. So for the study of interaction of electricity or electrical energy with matter, matter should be an electrolyte. So what is a non-electrolyte then? So what is an electrolyte? So electrolytes are the substances which conduct electricity in the molten state or solution state. I repeat, electrolytes are the substances which conduct electricity in the molten state or solution state. So why do we say that it should conduct electricity in the molten state or solution state? In the solid state, the substances, if an electrolyte is in the solid state, it does not conduct electricity because the constants of the solid are fixed in their position. Because in the case of electrolytic conduction, the electricity is conducted through movement of ions. So if you take solid electrolyte, ions are fixed in their position, therefore the solids do not conduct electricity. Of course metals conduct, metals are solids. We will be discussing later about that. So it's an electrolytic conduction. Electrolyte should be in the solution state or molten state or fused state. So when we melt, the state obtained is called molten state or fused state. So when the electrolyte, like sodium chloride, okay, all your ionic compounds are electrolytes. We know what are ionic compounds. Because whenever a reaction takes place between an electropositive element and electronegative element, ionic compound is formed. Electropositive element loses electrons and electronegative element gains the electrons, and thereby cation and anion are formed, and electrostatic force of attraction holds these ions together, resulting in the formation of ionic compound. So there is no bond like a covalent bond where the electrons are mutually contributed and shared and a bond is formed between the two atoms. So unlike a covalent bond which is represented by solid line, ionic bond cannot be represented by a solid line, and ionic bond is directionless. Ionic compounds do not have any shape, whereas covalent compounds have shape and geometry, right? So individual ionic compounds do not have any shape, but ionic solids have geometry or shape. So unlike covalent compounds which are directional, where covalent bond is directional, ionic compounds are non-directional. Okay, so there is no bonding, there is only electrostatic force of attraction holding the cations and anions together. So in the solid state, cations and anions are fixed in a position. So if you take NaCl, sodium and chloride ions are fixed in position in the solid state. So when you pass electricity through solid sodium chloride, it does not conduct electricity. Because what is electricity? Electricity is nothing but flow of charges. So if electricity is to flow from one end to the other end, there should be some charge carrier in the medium so that electricity can flow from one end to the other. So there should be always some charge carrier in the substance that we are dealing with if the electricity is to flow through the system. So we have two types of conduction, like electrolytic conduction and metallic conduction. In electrolytic conduction, the charge carriers are ions. So if you take sodium chloride, molten sodium chloride. So when you melt sodium chloride and pass electricity through molten sodium chloride solution, what happens? Cations and anions move in the opposite direction. So if you consider molten sodium chloride, and if you pass current through molten sodium chloride, what happens? This is anode, this is cathode. So you have Na plus and Cl minus ions in the fused sodium chloride. So sodium ions, Na plus ions will be moving towards cathode, which is negatively charged. Chloride ions will be moving towards anode because anode is positively charged. So cations move towards cations will move towards cathode and anions will move towards anode because they always move towards the electrodes carrying opposite charge. So this movement of ions will result in conduction of electricity. So I said electricity is nothing but flow of charges. So if a system is to conduct electricity, then the system should possess some charge carrier. So these charge carriers could be ions, like in electrolytic conduction, or it could be electrons. So electrons are also charge carriers. Look, ions are charged, electrons are also charged. So for a current to pass through a system, the system should have these charge carriers. So we have two charge carriers like ions and electrons. So electrolytes conduct electricity through movement of ions. So electrolytic conduction is an example of ionic conduction. On the other hand, metals like copper, aluminum, silver, gold, they do conduct electricity. So if we connect a silver rod to two ends of electric field, current flows from one end to the other. Why? In the case of metals, there are free electrons. So these electrons move from one end to the other, carrying the electricity. Therefore, for a system to conduct electricity, there should be charge carriers. And there are two types of charge carriers, namely ions and electrons. So ionic conduction and electronic conduction. So electrolytic conduction is an example of ionic conduction. Metallic conduction is an example of electronic conduction. So the basic difference between electrolytic and metallic conduction is in the nature of charge carriers. So in electrolytic conduction, ions carry the current through movement, and in metallic conduction, electrons carry the current through movement. So this is the basic difference between metallic conduction and electrolytic conduction. So as the name itself indicates, electrolytic conduction is possible only in the case of molten electrolytes or electrolyte solutions. Means electrolytes dissolved in a suitable solvent. And examples of electrolytes are ionic compounds. All ionic compounds and certain polar covalent compounds in the solution state are the examples of electrolytes. I repeat, all ionic compounds in the molten state or in the solution state conduct electricity. And some polar covalent compounds like HCl. HCl is a gas where HCl is a polar covalent compound. In the sense, though the bond between hydrogen and chlorine is covalent, because of the electronegativity difference between hydrogen and chlorine, polarity arises in HCl molecule. Thereby, this covalent bond acquires a partial ionic character. So this is the meaning of a polar covalent bond, in the sense where covalent bond has got ionic character. Okay, so this HCl gas, when dissolved in water, dissociates completely into H plus ions and chloride minus ions. So hydrogen chloride, which is a polar covalent compound in the gaseous state, when dissolved in water, so it forms a completely dissociated HCl solution. So HCl is completely dissociated into H plus and Cl minus ions. So even hydrochloric acid solution conducts electricity in the solution state. So all ionic compounds and certain polar covalent compounds conduct electricity. And what are the examples of ionic compounds? You know that ionic bond is found between an electropositive element and electronegative element. So in the periodic table, without any doubt, you can say first group and second group elements, namely alkali metals and alkaline earth metals, are electropositive, and 16th group and 17th group elements, namely oxygen family and halogen family, they are electronegative elements. So all the compounds of first and second group elements with 16th and 7th group elements form ionic compounds. What are first group elements? Lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium. What are second group elements? Beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, barium and radium. Let's not worry about the last one. Then 16th group, oxygen, sulfur. Let's not worry about selenium and all. 17th group, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iron. So any combination of these first group elements with 17th group elements and first group elements with oxygen and sulfur, and a combination of second group elements with 17th group elements and a combination of second group elements with oxygen and sulfur result in the formation of ionic compounds. Of course, these ionic compounds do have a certain degree of covalent character. You should remember, no ionic compound is 100% pure, in the sense it is 100% not ionic, and also no covalent compound is 100% covalent. All ionic compounds will have certain degree of covalent character, and all covalent compounds will have certain degree of ionic character. You should remember that. So let's not worry about the degree of covalent character or degree of ionic character in a compound. Let us focus on the fact that the compounds formed by the reaction of first and second group elements with the 17th group elements and oxygen and sulfur of 16th group elements form ionic compounds, and all these in the solution state or molten state conduct electricity. Therefore, you can give tens of examples of electrolytes. Whenever we ask an example of an electrolyte, students immediately say sodium chloride or potassium chloride. Okay, that is the most common example given by teachers as well as students. So, at this stage, where you are in final year BSc, you should be able to give tens of examples of ionic compounds. So, I gave the hint or clue that the combination of first and second group elements, and to some extent 13th group elements, boron family, reacting with the 16th group and 7th group elements form ionic compounds, right? So that's how it's easy to remember the example of electrolytes. So all ionic compounds are electrolytes, and certain polar covalent compounds in the solution state are also example of electrolytes. So in electrochemistry, we always deal with electrolytes and we never deal with the non-electrolytes. Because what are non-electrolytes? Non-electrolytes are the substances which do not conduct electricity in fused state or molten state, right? So when a system does not conduct current in any state, whether it's molten state or solution state, then there would be no interaction between the matter and electricity. Therefore, in electrochemistry, we always deal with electrolytes. And we also learned that electrolytic conduction is through movement of ions. I give a simple example of sodium chloride, molten sodium chloride, or it could be aqueous sodium chloride also. So in molten sodium chloride, sodium ions move in one direction, chloride ions move in the opposite direction, and thereby they conduct electricity. So molten sodium chloride conducts electricity. Like sodium chloride, any ionic compound in the molten state or solution state conducts electricity through movement of ions. And in metallic conduction, as I said, the conduction of electricity is through movement of electrons. So this is electrolytic conduction is an ionic conduction. Metallic conduction is example of electronic conduction. That's the basic difference. The other difference is electrolytic conduction increases with increase in temperature. As the temperature is increased, electrolytic conduction increases. Whereas, as the temperature is increased, metallic conduction decreases. Okay? So, the effect of temperature is opposite on electrolytic and metallic conduction. In electrolytic conduction, the conductivity of the solution increases with increase in temperature. In metallic conduction, conductivity decreases with increase in temperature. Why? Let's not worry at this junction. Okay, and in metallic conduction, another difference between electrolytic and metallic conduction is that in metallic conduction, a chemical reaction takes place. Means electrolytic conduction is accompanied by chemical change. So, electrolytic conduction always leads to decomposition of an electrolyte. Like if we pass electricity through molten sodium chloride solution, sodium and chlorine are liberated at respective electrodes. Sodium ions, Na plus ions, are discharged at cathode as sodium ions, and chloride ions are discharged at anode as chlorine gas. So, passage of electricity through an electrolyte leads to a chemical reaction. Okay, so that's called electrolysis. So, electrolytic conduction is always accompanied by change in composition. That is, there is a chemical change. There is change in composition of the electrolyte when electricity is passed. On the contrary, metallic conduction is accompanied by no chemical change. In the sense, when current is passed through a metallic conductor or a metal, current just passes through the metal without bringing about any change, chemical change or change in the composition of the metal. So, if you are passing current through an aluminum wire, current just passes through aluminum wire, and aluminum is not undergoing any change in its composition. So, passage of electricity through a metal leads to only increase in temperature. The metal gets heated up. Whereas in the electrolytic conduction, the passage of electricity is accompanied by change in composition. Therefore, these are some of the differences between electrolytic conduction and metallic conduction. Now let us see. When we speak of electrolytic conduction, there is conduction of current by an electrolyte. We study this conduction of electricity by electrolyte using a device called electrolytic cell. Okay. So, electrolytic conduction is studied using the device called electrolytic cell. So, in an electrolytic cell, the process that is taking place is that the electrical energy is converted to chemical energy. In the sense, when we pass current, means electricity, through an electrolytic solution, the electrolyte undergoes decomposition. So, that's the meaning of what? Conversion of electrical energy into chemical energy. In the sense, when you pass current in an electrolytic solution, this current brings about a chemical reaction. For example, if you consider electrolysis of water. Electrolysis of water. Water as such is a bad conductor or poor conductor of electricity, because pure water at 25 degrees Celsius has got H plus ions and OH minus ions to the tune of 10 power minus 7 moles per liter. This is the concentration of H plus and OH minus ions in pure water at 25 degrees Celsius. So the concentration of ions is so less that pure water does not conduct current, or it is a poor conductor of electricity. So pure water is a poor conductor of electricity. Therefore, conductivity of this water can be increased by adding an impurity like an acid. Because if you add HCl or H2SO4, what happens? So when you add an acid to water, we call acidulated water or acidified water. So when you add an acid like HCl, H plus and Cl minus ions are added to water, so conductance of water increases. So electrolysis of water is carried out by adding certain amount of impurity like an acid like HCl or a base like NaOH in order to enhance the conductance of water. So when we electrolyze water, we are just passing a current through impure water. So this is anode, this is cathode. So what happens? Water is electrolyzed. So upon passing current, water is electrolyzed and you get hydrogen gas released at cathode, oxygen gas released at anode. So water is decomposed into hydrogen and oxygen gases at respective electrodes. So what do we understand from this is that in an electrolytic cell, electrical energy is converted to chemical energy, or in other words, passage of electricity through an electrolyte brings about a chemical change. And the reaction that is taking place in an electrolytic cell is a redox reaction. The reactions that occurs in an electrochemical cell, electrolytic cell, the reaction that occurs in an electrolytic cell is always a redox reaction, because oxidation occurs at anode, reduction occurs at cathode. So you take any electrolytic cell, the reactions taking place in the electrolytic cells are redox reactions. And the redox reaction that is taking place in an electrolytic cell is a non-spontaneous redox reaction. You have studied in your thermodynamics what are spontaneous and non-spontaneous processes. And the reaction that is taking place in an electrolytic cell is a non-spontaneous redox reaction. So what is a non-spontaneous process? A process which cannot occur on its own is called a non-spontaneous process. A non-spontaneous process can be always brought about with the help of an external force. So that's the meaning of non-spontaneous process. So as long as you pass current, the electrolysis takes place. That is, decomposition of the electrolyte takes place only when you pass the current. The moment you stop passing current, electrolysis stops. So if you pass current through acidulated water, hydrogen and oxygen gases are liberated at respective electrodes. And how long these hydrogen and oxygen gases are liberated? As long as you pass current. The moment you stop passing current, the liberation of hydrogen and oxygen gas stops, because the electrolytic decomposition stops immediately when the current is stopped. Like your motor. When you switch on the motor, as long as the motor is switched on, it pumps water. The moment you switch off the motor, pumping of water stops. It's a non-spontaneous process. So the reactions that are taking place in electrolytic cells are non-spontaneous redox reactions. Therefore, if you consider delta G for such reactions, in electrolytic cell reaction is positive. Delta G is positive. What is delta G? G stands for free energy. Delta G is free energy change. So free energy change accompanying the reaction in an electrolytic cell is positive, in the sense it is a non-spontaneous reaction. So in order to recollect about electrolytic cells, in electrolytic cells, electrical energy is converted into chemical energy. That is, passage of electricity brings about a chemical change. And the reaction that is taking place in the electrolytic cell is a non-spontaneous redox reaction. Just remember, whether it's a galvanic cell or electrolytic cell, the reactions that take place are all redox reactions because electrons are involved, transfer of electrons are involved. And in the electrolytic cell, it is a non-spontaneous redox reaction. Therefore, delta G is positive. And in an electrolytic cell, the two electrodes, to complete a circuit, we require two electrodes. One is anode, the other one is cathode. So the two electrodes in electrolytic cell may be of same material. Okay, they should be of same material which are non-reactive. They are inert electrodes. The electrodes that we use in an electrolytic cell should be inert electrodes, may be made up of same material or different materials, and dipped into same electrolyte solution. Both the electrodes can be dipped into this single electrolyte solution. So the electrodes used in electrolytic cell should be inert, in the sense they should not react. And the two inert electrodes may be of same material or different material, but dipped into the same electrolyte. So these are the characteristics of an electrolytic cell. And we have second category of cells. They are galvanic cells, named after Galvani. So what are these galvanic cells? In the galvanic cells, chemical energy is converted to electrical energy. Look, in the electrolytic cell, electrical energy is converted into chemical energy. In the galvanic cell, chemical energy is converted into electrical energy. In the sense, in a galvanic cell, spontaneous redox reaction takes place, leading to generation or production of electricity. So in a galvanic cell, a spontaneous redox reaction takes place, resulting in the generation or production of electricity. In a sense, the chemical energy accompanying the spontaneous redox reaction is converted into electrical energy. So when I say that chemical energy of a spontaneous redox reaction is converted into electrical energy, which form of chemical energy is converted into electrical energy? Is it enthalpy change or free energy change or internal energy change? So it is always the free energy change. That is, when I say free energy, it is always Gibbs free energy. Remember, unless it is mentioned or specified, it is always free Gibbs free energy. If it is Helmholtz energy, we always specify it as Helmholtz free energy. Like when I say alcohol, it is ethanol. When I say ether, it is understood that it is a diethyl ether. Any other ether is specified. Any other alcohol is specified. If it is methanol, I say methanol. I never call methanol as an alcohol. So commonly when I say an alcohol, it is always ethanol. So also when I say free energy, it is always Z, that is Gibbs free energy, but not Helmholtz free energy. And I have learned in thermodynamics that free energy is a measure of useful work. It's a measure of useful work. Means the work that can be utilized. So G is a measure of useful work. Therefore, free energy change accompanying the redox reaction taking place in a galvanic cell is converted into electrical energy. So look at the difference. In electrolytic cell, electrical energy is converted into chemical energy, and here chemical energy is converted into electrical energy. And here we need two different electrolytes. I'm not talking about concentration cells. I'm just focusing my discussion on galvanic cells, right? So, in galvanic cells, the two electrodes used, anode and cathode, should be of two different materials and dipped into two different electrolytes. Unlike in an electrolytic cell, where the two electrodes are inert electrodes, may be made up of same material or different material, but dipped into same electrolyte. But in the case of galvanic cells, the two electrolytes should be made up of two different materials, and the two electrodes are dipped into two different electrolytes. For example, zinc rod dipped into zinc sulfate solution, copper rod dipped into copper sulfate solution. When they are connected externally and internally by salt bridge, it acts as a galvanic cell. We'll learn it a bit later. So, in a galvanic cell, the electrodes used should be of different materials and dipped into two different electrolytes. Like silver electrode dipped in silver nitrate solution, copper electrode dipped in copper sulfate solution. Both are connected externally by a circuit and internally connected by salt bridge. Therefore, in a galvanic cell, the two electrodes used should be of different materials dipped into two different electrolytes. And each electrode is called half cell, because a pair of electrodes constitute a cell. Each electrode can be called as a half cell. And here, as I said, the reaction that is taking place in a galvanic cell is a spontaneous redox reaction. It is spontaneous redox reaction. Therefore, delta Z should be negative. Whereas in the case of electrolytic cell, it is a non-spontaneous redox reaction. Therefore, delta Z for the reaction would be positive. But in the case of galvanic cell, delta Z is a negative for the redox reaction, because it is a spontaneous redox reaction. And there is another difference between the electrolytic cells and galvanic cells. In electrolytic cells, I forgot to tell this, in electrolytic cells, anode is given positive sign, cathode is given negative sign. In electrolytic cell, anode is given positive sign and cathode is given negative sign. In the galvanic cell, the sign is reverse. Anode is given negative sign and cathode is given positive sign. So this is another difference between an electrolytic cell and a galvanic cell. So these are the things or topics I wanted to discuss in the first session of electrochemistry, and we will continue the discussion in the